What is going on, everybody? We're back. The Redshirt Podcast is back for another episode, and we finally made it to week 0. The college football season is upon us, and it is going to be delightful with all the matchups that we got going on. Tre is in the building. That way, 816 is in the building tonight, man. We also have a special guest coming up here soon. So, Tre, before we get into the show, how you feeling tonight, bro?
I'm feeling great, man. If you're watching this now, you're watching the day before the very first college football game of the 2025 and NCAA season. I'm very excited because, especially with our special guest, he's going to be very excited because he's a part of the very first game. Because, I mean, hey, we're starting off with a very exciting conference. Me, DG, you and me, we've been talking about the Big 12 all during the offseason. We're talking about our guys who we believe is going to be great. Some guys that we're on the edge about. Yeah. And I mean, why not get two of the best Big 12 teams to go head-to-head in Ireland?
Yes.
So why not? DG, let's go ahead and get them on here, man.
Yeah, this is a great matchup, man. K-State and Iowa State are going to meet up in Dublin, Ireland, to face off against each other. Two very high-powered offenses going against each other. Two teams that I feel like are very evenly balanced with each other. It should make for a great game. But, of course, we got to give you guys the insight.
We also got to remember these are two of the teams that we might think is going to be in Dallas, Texas, come conference championship.
That's true, too. It would not surprise me if either one of these teams are playing for a Big 12 championship as well in this conference. I think that both of those teams have the chances to do that at this point. But, of course, man, we as we like to always do, we love giving you guys the local vibes and bringing people on that know these teams the best, man. So tonight, our special guest, man, he is a father, a veteran, and as well as a husband as well. He's the host of Locked On K-State. Our guy, Christian, is in the building tonight, man. We appreciate having him here. And, man, it's very exciting as the K-State season is upon us. Christian, how you feeling tonight, man?
Well, DG, Tre, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. I'm excited. The intro was great. Everything you said about the team in the Big 12, I agreed with everything you said. So I'm excited for this conversation, and I am stoked for tomorrow, Saturday. Dublin, Ireland. I mean, there's no other game on. It's Kansas State, Iowa State. The world will be watching college football. I am stoked.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited, man, for it. Before we dive into this, talk to us about how did you get started, covering K-State and things of that nature.
Yeah, I've been covering sports across all different things for the past decade or so since I got out of the military, and I've worked with Athlon Sports, Sports Illustrated. I've done some freelancing stuff myself, and I've done things in the armed forces. I've worked things down in Texas area, and Kansas State just happened to be something that fell into my lap. I'm going to be completely honest with you, a little insider baseball, but it's been some of the most fun 7 to 8 months so far since I've started this channel, since covering any type of sports in the last decade or so. I've been having a really good time. The fans of Kansas State are unlike anything that I've ever experienced before. They are so dedicated. I mean, we're talking about farmers, kids of farmers. We're talking about Midwest vibes. It's insane. And they are so dedicated, and it's so fun to cover that team every single day.
Yeah. I was also about to ask. Some people don't know the terminology of EMAW. They think that when they see the terminology, they just say, what does that stand for? Number one, because you touch base for people who don't know what EMAW stands for. And number two, why Kansas State?
Yeah, every man a Wildcat. That's what EMAW means. It's just it's a status. It's a love, and it's just it's a great tradition that Kansas State has developed for a very long time, and I've learned it myself too since covering, because I'm not an alumni, and that's something that is unlike when the Locked On Network, when they try to cover a team. But I've learned it, and it's really cool. Why I picked Kansas State? I mean, it's just honestly, it's such an interesting program. The football team is so interesting. Chris Kleiman is such a fun coach to cover. Avery Johnson is an absolute stud. And this offense is electric. The basketball team as well is fun to cover as well, with disappointing season last year, but just a few years removed from an Elite Eight performance. But overall, Kansas State and their fans, if I had to pick it now, knowing that what I know now, I definitely wouldn't change my answer. The folks here, the fans of Kansas State, are insane.
Yeah. Obviously, I grew up in the days of watching Bill Snyder and those teams.
Oh yes,
be dominant and seeing the Darren Sproles of the world play for K-State. Since then, I know that during that time, after that time period, K-State kind of had a low moment, of kind of wandering in the losing wilderness. And now Chris Kleiman has come in there and changed that program. What changes have you seen him make that has made this program to the point where it's at today?
I feel like he is, and I don't say this lightly either, but I feel like he is the perfect person to fill the shoes from what you can of Bill Snyder. I mean, you can't truly fill the shoes. Nobody could do that of arguably one of the greatest coaches in college football history. I don't know if there's any one coach that has had a impact on a certain program like Bill Snyder has. I mean, you could make the argument that some are better in the light schemes like Saban's or of the case, but like the way that he has seen in Kansas State and in Manhattan, I don't know if you can make an argument that anybody else is there. But Chris Kleiman, I think, fills the shoes great. I think he does. He brings true grit. He's an Iowa man himself. He's raised in the Midwest. He has a great FCS experience before coming to Kansas State, was successful at the FCS level. And what he does, I think this is the most important piece here, guys. I think he doesn't focus on the stars, although that you would love to see, Kansas State and some of these other programs in the Big 12, especially in the Midwest, pick up all these 5-star guys, some of these high 4-star guys. That's unfortunately, that's unfortunately unlikely. It just doesn't happen, right? So you have to focus on getting the right guys to fit the system, to want to come to Manhattan, to want to be in, dare I say, without truly meaning it, the middle of nowhere. For what most people think, it's the middle of nowhere, right? It's just a flyover state. They sing country songs about it. But what I would say is he finds talent and he finds fit over stars. And that's the most important thing that Chris Kleiman does to make his truly work in Kansas State. And each year he's getting 8-9 wins because of it. He is truly one of the best coaches in the Big 12.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because it's like a lot of people who watch Kansas State, they're like, this team, they don't bring in your Austin Max, your Tyler Atkinsons, your Arch Mannings, if you will. You don't bring a lot of 5-stars in. You get, like, I've seen you guys do it firsthand. You guys have personally develop guys. You're talking about the guys like Deuce Vaughn, who probably not a lot of guys would have taken a chance on. You guys did, brought him in, were able to develop him, and now he's in the NFL doing what he needs to do for Dallas. And then you've done it even with our family, or with our favorite team, with Felix and Udike Uzoma, a guy who was a 3-star. You guys brought him in, developed him, make them become one of the best players in the Big 12, and sent him off, and now he's a first-round pick.
Yeah, and unfortunately on the season-ending IR too. I hope that's unfortunate, but I mean, he's insane. He's great, and obviously being a first-round draft pick, I think we're going to have potentially a very close to first-round draft pick on the defensive side next year. I'll say top 50 to be safe, but there's a lot of exciting stuff coming around the pipeline for Kansas State. You got to give a lot of credit to Chris Kleiman and his staff as well.
Yeah. That leads us to our next kind of topic. You're going into this upcoming season, obviously being an exciting one for them, starting off in Ireland. What are your expectations early on heading into this year?
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. It's heavy. The Kool-Aid is purple. It's sweet. It tastes good. I am very excited about Kansas State's football team this year. There's a lot of reasons why I'm stoked. And one has to do with the fact that they're on a national stage and everybody gets to see what this team is like before anybody else gets to touch the football. Like that is an exciting piece, but you're playing a team that you are well aware of. That Farmageddon is one of the most underrated rivalries in all of college sports. If you don't know much about Farmageddon, about Iowa State, Kansas State, look it up. It's worth the look up. It's worth the Google search to read the Wikipedia page. Like, even if you want to go just that slightly, this is a 54-50-4 win total 118 years in a row you play this game. You don't hear about that a lot. When you hear about rivalries, you think about long-lasting rivalries. You're thinking like Army-Navy. This is a long-lasting rivalry, and it's normally at the end of the season. And you got to remember, this was the same game last year that Iowa State had to win to get to Arlington to defend and fight for the Big 12 championship. So the fact that we get it the week 0 right at the start to begin the season, it's exciting. But overall, Kansas State, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I think they're a really successful team this year, and I think they're going to compete for a Big 12 championship. I have them making it back. I predict them to be back at Arlington for the first time since 2022.
Hey, I personally, I'm going to tell you this. Me and DG, I know for certain, we have been very big Avery Johnson fans. Like, outside of our teams, one of the biggest guys that we talk about Avery Johnson. We talked about his ability to not only use his legs, but also be a guy who can create in the pocket as well. As a guy coming into, I believe, his junior year, sophomore or junior year, what is the expectations for Avery Johnson?
Yeah, he's going to be a junior, but it's his second year at the quarterback at the helm as the starting guy. Year one, he sat behind Will Howard, who obviously went and transferred off to Ohio State to win the national championship. Last year, that was the narrative, right? The narrative was, hey, you're the guy that's replacing Will Howard. This is your team now, but you have to transition into that phase. You're seen as the first-year quarterback. You're a sophomore, but when you're just handed the keys like that, you might as well just be a freshman, right? Having a little bit of experience in there, but you might as well be a redshirt when it comes to the eyes of a quarterback. This year, it's different. Although last year he had some good ups and downs, he had some good ups, a little bit of downs. There was some inconsistencies. I think a lot of that gets fixed this year. Here, let me explain why. 7-1 was their start last year. That was a great start for a quarterback that is just handed the keys to a team that should be successful. Would probably find a way to get back to the college football playoffs or the Big 12 championship. If Will Howard was there, you could make that argument. He did it with Ohio State and won a natty last year. But you do it with a young quarterback, and he goes 7-1, and he's very successful at that. Then something happens. Oh, let me tell you what that is. It's college football. Anything can happen, right? Yeah. Well, after the 7-1 start, the wheels fell off against the Houston Cougars. Who would have expected that to happen? And then just things started to fall out of place. They wind up ending 8-4. Avery finishes with a respectable 25-10 when it comes touchdown interception ratio. Pretty respectable for, a first-year quarterback. But the momentum shifted. There was this thought process of these players that might leave. They didn't feel the hype, didn't feel that there was going to be a good feeling in year 2 of Avery Johnson because of the second half woes. That never happened. The transfer portal, the roster retention stayed the same. Jace Brown stuck around. Dylan Edwards stuck around. They added some nice pieces in the transfer portal. They had one of the best recruiting classes in program history this year. We're already seeing some true freshmen on the depth chart, some even being potential starters week 0 for tomorrow's game. And you finally have a consistent structure with your offensive coordinator, Matt Wells, being the only guy touching the offense coordinator position. They were sharing roles with Connor Riley, who was the co-offense coordinator last year. He now got promoted and is the offensive line coach for the Dallas Cowboys. So it's Matt Wells and Matt Wells only. He has a past, a very good past, when it comes to getting quarterbacks succeeding. He was the former head coach at Utah State when Jordan Love was the quarterback there. He excels in play action quarterback play and performance. Jordan Love was very good at Utah State. He's now the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. I think he's going to get the absolute most out of Avery Johnson this year, and I think the offense surrounding him has never been more loaded. The offense is completely loaded. I think they have so many weapons for them to be at the top of the Big 12 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, obviously we when we talk about Avery, year one being kind of that learning process. You kind of expect that maturation to kind of come into fruition this year. What are your expectations for him to improve from last year to this year at this point?
The stat that everybody looks at is always his completion percentage. Like, that is the first thing that they're like, well, he's inconsistent. I think it was 53% was his completion percentage last year, if I remember correctly. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe that's the number. And Yeah, that could improve. And that should improve. That's an easy number to say that you are a better quarterback. If you don't have good completion percentages in college, you probably aren't going to be a good quarterback in the NFL with a high completion rating. That is something that translates at a decent level. So it's one to look at for sure. But the weapons that they bring in, with Dylan Edwards being the number one guy, you are losing DJ Giddens, who I'm not trying to overshadow. That's going to be a huge loss to the running back room. They relied on him so much last year, averaging almost 7 yards per carry. But this is one of the best tight end rooms in the country. It's very underestimated, underappreciated. They're bringing back 4 returning players that all scored at least 1 touchdown. And this is a tight end room that led the country in red zone touchdowns with 13 last year in Avery Johnson's first year. Then you're bringing in a top recruit in Lincoln Cure, a 5-star, something that you normally don't get for Kansas State, but it is a 5-star from the state of Kansas as well, the number 1 recruit in the state of Kansas. And then, of course, the wide receiver room. You bring in some size in Jared Bradley and Jared Tibbs, 6'3", 6'4" wide receivers on the outside to pair with Jace Brown. That alone should naturally help that completion percentage because you have a bigger target to throw to, right? So overall, I think if I had to give 2 keys of what I'm looking for from Avery Johnson is I want to see his completion rating go up a little bit. I think that just helps in consistencies. And of course, this one's probably a cop-out, but I want to see him be healthy because after the Colorado game last season, he was never the same. And that hurt them in the second half of the season and ultimately led them to 8-4.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's like I've been, like I said, I've been watching Kansas State. I've been watching the Big 12 in general. It was fun watching him play for that first 3/4 of the season. And it's not looking the same. But I would like to backtrack on the Lincoln Cure thing because me personally, I'm a big recruiting guy. So it was a bit. I know y'all were battling with big, bad, mighty Oregon to get him. It seemed like at one point in time that he might flip to Oregon, but you guys were able to retain him. Talk about his connection with Avery and his connection with DJ. Not DJ, but Dylan Edwards.
Yeah, the connection seems strong. It seems really good. And what I've seen from fall camp, not really spring camp, because he stayed in high school and finished his high school athletic career, which I think is super cool from the coaching staff to let him do that because you don't get high school back. So he got to finish track and do all that stuff, and he won a state championship in track. But the relationship seems super strong. I will say I did have a concern right away because being a freshman on the staff, you wondered if you were going to see him make some sort of early performance and see an early impact. And the fact that he was running track in the spring and you're going to be a tight end in the Big 12, it made me a little nervous. Like, okay, maybe you're going to be a wide receiver or maybe you're just going to redshirt. I'm not sure. And that obviously a redshirt idea sounds like an easy transfer portal call for the next year around in this type of college football. But it didn't seem that way at all. He looks great. He's got great size. He did have a minor setback in fall camp where he did sit out a little bit. He is towards the bottom of the depth chart, and I do think that's out of respect for some of the other returning veterans. But I do think we're going to see some action from Lincoln Cure in the game tomorrow, and I do also think that we're going to see him have a pretty decent impact this entire season. People are giving him flowers. National media is showing it up. I'm seeing on 3 ESPN, they dropped like they're all freshman teams. And one of the only players in the Big 12 that will pop up is Lincoln Cure, the tight end position. He's the real deal. He really is. As for fighting for Oregon and things like that in the recruiting battle, sometimes you just get lucky and some people just want to stay home. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Oregon, if they really wanted him, they probably could have got him. Phil Knight knows how to spend his money and make it happen. We just lost a 5-star battle with the tight end with Ian Premer, the top-rated recruit in Kansas this year, who decided to go to Notre Dame instead of stick around and play for either KU or Kansas State. I can probably assure you that money had a lot to do with that. Lincoln Cure just seems like a guy that knows that he has the ability to play at an NFL level. I think he does do that, and I think he eventually will be an NFL level talent when it's all said and done. But I think he also wants to create a legacy, and he most definitely can do that in Manhattan.
Yeah. These other playmakers, Dylan Edwards and Jace Brown, obviously I know a lot of K-State fans are excited about what they can bring to the table for this team as well. What do you feel like the ways that they can impact in this season not only in this game in Ireland, but in this season as well too.
Yeah, it's going to be different than what we've normally seen. And if you wanted to get a taste, like if you're itching and you got to get some highlights before you get to see the games tomorrow this weekend, I encourage you to go check out the bowl game. I know it's against Rutgers, so it's not like one that you would naturally assume that you'd think it's be a good game, but it truly was. Rutgers was winning the game. Kansas State came back. It was an epic comeback. But the way the offense performed directly impacts this conversation with Dylan Edwards and Jace Brown. Matt Wells had the play calling. He was the guy that was taking care of it in the bowl game, and Dylan Edwards went off. He was electric. He played off tackles. His speed was shown. There was multiple big play runs where he wasn't even touched. He just ran outside the sidelines. Like, he was just insane. And then they were utilizing Jace Brown not just as a wide receiver, as a true number one, but they were utilizing him in jet sweeps. They were utilizing his speed. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. And then, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, how I think that the play action is going to really come into play. You mix those two together, and it's going to be impossible to decide if you're going to put 9 in the box or if you're going to be able to leave it at receiver alone without a safety and in single coverage. And I think that's where really this offense comes into play and becomes absolutely dangerous with the speed, with the size, and with the dynamic differences of what Avery Johnson can produce. I think that's what makes this team so dang dangerous on offense.
Oh, yeah. I think that it's always, I think that that's the biggest thing about it is when we talk about Kansas State, we talk a lot about the offense because of the fact that, like what DG said, like we've seen Darren Sproles. I personally saw Colin Klein play my Missouri Tigers a few times. We've seen Tyler Lockett. We've seen a lot of great quality players come play for Kansas State. But the one thing about it is we're not really too familiar with the defense. If there's anything to point out with people who don't know really much about Kansas State defense, what is it that we should look for?
Well, number one thing, if I had to say one thing about the defense that you need to know about, his name is Austin Romaine. Austin Romaine, you could easily, when it's all said and done this season, Austin Romaine might be the best linebacker in college football, not just Big 12, in college football. He is electric. He is dynamic. And him alone makes Kansas State's linebacking room a top 10 linebacking room in the country. Like, he is a very good quarterback. I mentioned earlier this episode when we were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs guy, your boy, who was a first-round draft pick. Austin Romaine is going to be a top 50 draft pick in next season's draft. He has the ability to do so, and he's going to be great at the next level. So if you want your Chiefs to get an extra linebacker, there's one for you right there. Trade up into
like we might
50.
need one.
Yeah, you might need one.
We might need one.
You never know, right? Yeah. Right. So that would be the number one thing I look for. But if I had to talk about the biggest concern, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a huge concern, but I think it's willing to talk about, especially since I think this is the key to the game, by the way, too. I don't know if I'm getting out of topic here, but the secondary of Kansas State is a question mark. It's a huge concern because Jacob Parrish is now in the NFL, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Marquise Siegel is now in the NFL, drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. So the only returning production that you truly have in the secondary, guys, is VJ Payne. And might I add, I think he's a dog. I think he's going to be an NFL-level talent, join Parrish and Siegel in the NFL at one time. Kansas State's pretty good at adding secondary. But they were very heavy in the portal. They have a lot of young guys on the roster that really didn't show up until the Rape Bowl in the bowl game. So you have a lot of question marks. You have a couple who had their coming out party during the Rape Bowl, like Zayshawn Rich, Donovan McIntosh, who are going to be your starting corners on Saturday. But I would say if you had to put one concern on this team, that's where I'd put it. Can the secondary hold up? Now, on the flip side, Iowa State no longer has those two top wide receivers that each went for 1,000 yards last year. Yeah. They have to replace 167 receptions across two wide receivers in Higgins and Knowles, who are now at the Houston Texans. Yeah. So as long as they can stop a subpar wide receiver group, then I think they'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into that game. Obviously, K-State travels over to Dublin, Ireland to take on the Iowa State Cyclones. Big rivalry game for both of these teams. I know both of these fan bases have to be excited. What's kind of been the excitement around being able to play this game in week 0 for the K-State fan base over there?
Yeah, it's mixed. It's definitely mixed, right? Some people like it that it's week 0 and you get to play first, and it's a fun adventure and heading to Dublin, Ireland. I've seen mixed results, and then also I've seen people hate the idea because this should be a week 12 matchup. This game should technically be at home in Manhattan. So there's mixed feelings about it. I see both sides of the coin here. I understand why you'd be upset and why you'd want this game to be in Manhattan because, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the greatest rivalries in the Big 12, if not just college sports at all, and it should be on campus, right? You should get this on campus. But on the flip side, I can see you kind of forfeiting leaving this one on campus for 1 year to get that brand appeal for both programs and for the Big 12 especially. When you're looking at trying to find media rights, when you're looking at trying to find every edge you possibly can in this brand new world of the chaos, the wild, wild west of college athletics as we're starting to know it, you have to find every edge you possibly can. And Brent Yormark is not afraid to get creative. And when I look back at some of these Dublin games, you remember them. You might not remember a random game in week 3 in 2024, but you remember when Nebraska and Northwestern and Georgia Tech all played in Dublin. Like, you remember those games. So it gives you an opportunity to make the first statement and hopefully a good impression on the college football season heading into the year. And the fact that if you do make that good first impression, it's going to be talked about for weeks and possibly into the following season as well, just like we have with, as I mentioned, those Nebraska, Northwestern, and Georgia Tech games.
Yeah, I definitely agree because it's like, for me, not a lot of people. I believe, are either asleep or they're not really understanding on how well the Big 12 is, and I think that this is I call it, for people who bet, this is your type of conference because you're seeing a lot of crazy things happen. Like, we're watching a Texas Tech versus Oklahoma game that might, go 3-4 overtimes. Or watching a Kansas game that's, that is very much so action packed. Yeah. If there's something that should make people understand about Kansas State as well as the Big 12, what would it probably be?
I call the Big 12 a dog-eat-dog conference. And sometimes that's the worst thing for the conference, especially in this new world with the college football playoffs, where they're trying to find these teams that are unbeatable. And sometimes that doesn't look good. And they weren't rewarded for that last year. And I can make a perfect example for it in just a minute. But there is no deeper conference, in my opinion, in college football. They might not have the best top tier teams in college football. If you want to look towards the Big Ten or the SEC, they might have like the 4 best teams in that conference. But when you go from top to bottom, I don't think there is a deeper conference than the Big 12. For example, Oklahoma State didn't win a single Big 12 team or Big 12 game in the entire season last year. They were 0-9 in the Big 12, but they beat Arkansas. They beat the SEC Arkansas team. They got a win. And if you were to tell me this season that Oklahoma State, that Mike Gundy and his team would find a way to turn it around and find themselves in Arlington, I'd be a little surprised, but not as surprised I'd be if you told me Purdue was going to be in the Big Ten championship or Mississippi State was going to be in the SEC championship. The parity of the Big 12 is absolutely insane. 1 through 16, there are going to be some bottom feeders. There's no doubt about it. But even the media has no idea how to handle who's going to be the top runners in this conference year in and year out. We got a perfect example of it last year. The media poll at Media Days last year in the Big 12 ranked Arizona State last to win the Big 12 last year. And they were in the college football playoffs, and they were 1 play away from possibly beating Texas in the college football playoffs. I mean, it was a great college football game. That was probably the best game of the college football playoffs, in my opinion. And BYU beat SMU in the regular season. And they put SMU in the college football playoffs instead of BYU. A lot of that stemmed off the fact that they weren't ranked early because no one had an idea of what those teams are going to be like that because the parity is so crazy. You're starting to see that change a little bit this year. We saw some of these teams like Kansas State and Iowa State who are going to be ranked. This is the first ranked game to start the season in a very long time. I want to say it's like 2003 in Tokyo was like the last time we've had a ranked matchup internationally. It's crazy. But overall, the Big 12 conference, I'm a Big 12 believer, so take it as you will. But I do think it's the deepest conference from top to bottom.
Head into this game, man, like I said, a lot of excitement for K-State. But give us 3 keys to victory for K-State.
Yeah, I mean, I won't count this one, but turnovers is obviously a big one. But that's the cop-out, so I won't make you take that as one. That's just not fair, right? Yeah, well, I'm a football fan. If I heard that on the episode as one, I'd be like, what a cop-out. So injuries and turnovers, let me put those in there, of course. Got to make sure that happens, right? Number 1, we'll go back to what I said earlier. I want to see what the secondary does. If the secondary can be true and strong and not be a concern, because I think that's the biggest concern of the conversation right now, then I feel very good. I feel like there's a huge question mark on Rocco Beck, the quarterback of Iowa State. Was he good last year because of those 2 strong wide receivers in Higgins and Knoll, or was it because Rocco Beck was making big plays to get them to the Big 12 championship game? Right. We're going to find that out on Saturday, right? So I think that is a huge number 1. That's what I go with. Number 2, I'm going to go with Kansas State's offensive line. The left tackle, a transfer coming in from Ohio State, his name's George Fitzpatrick, got this huge applause from Chris Kleiman at Media Days. He said that he climbed all the way up the depth chart to be the new starting left tackle for this team, and he came in the spring. Well, unfortunately, one of the first days in fall camp, he suffered a medical situation, and he's not available for this Week 0 game. He's not on the depth chart. He hopefully will be ready for when the true Big 12 conference stuff plays in a few weeks down the road, in about a month or so. But the offensive line will be – there's going to be some new faces on the offensive line. Of course, you have John Pastore is taking over that left tackle spot. He was injured all last season, but Coach Chris Kleiman said that if he was healthy, he would have got 50, 60 snaps a game last year. He believes in his performance. Then you're bringing in some guys on the right side of the offensive line, complete all transfers that came in the summer. J.B. Nelson, who was with Penn State last year, one of the best offensive lines in the country. He transfers out, comes to Manhattan. And Terrence Enos, this guy is huge. He's a mansion. And he's playing at right tackle, coming to transfer over from Pitt. So a lot of new faces on the offensive line, of course, with a new offensive line coach as well, since the old offensive line coach is now with the Cowboys. So some question marks there. Can they protect Avery Johnson? Can they get that running game going so Dylan Edwards can make things happen? That'll be number 2. And then number 3 is by far Avery Johnson. We talked about the consistencies and inconsistencies of what he had last season. He had a hot start last year at 7-1. Can he do it again to get to 1-0? Because you're not playing UT Martin week 1 like you did last year. You're playing Iowa State. You're playing a Big 12 rival in week 0, a week before the entire season. So that's my 3 keys. If Avery Johnson can succeed, and I have no doubt that he will do well, he's got as long as he holds on to the football, then I think he'll be fine. Again, that's a cop-out, not part of that conversation. But as long as he does that, I think he'll be just fine. And I'm really excited for this game. I think it's a really good one. I wouldn't touch the spread if you're a betting guy. I think this game's always super close. And right now I think I see some of the people close to like 3.5 favorite for Kansas State. That sounds about right for me. I wouldn't touch it. But if I was going to play something, I'd play the over. I think this is going to be one that gets over 50 points. I think it's going to be a little bit more offense and defensive sided. But at the end of the day, I'm taking the Wildcats, just not by a lot. This game's always so close. It's always so close.
Oh, yeah. I think that this is going to be a great game as well, so I definitely agree with you there. But, I mean, unfortunately, as much as we would like to talk about the other one, I honestly would like to ask about the games that are probably going to be played at Manhattan as well as on the road. Going through your schedule and whatnot, a lot of us have you guys at probably about the 9-3 to probably about 10-2, maybe even 11-1. What is probably what are the games that you think are undoubtedly wins? What are some games that might be sneaks? What are some games that you're like, I don't know if we're pulling this one off?
Yeah, that's a good question. This schedule, the more I look at it, and I look at it way too much, to be completely honest with you, get a little insider baseball here. I look at the schedule way too much, and it's probably unhealthy. the schedule gets tougher every time I look at it, and that's why I say it's unhealthy. Of course, Iowa State week 0. You don't normally get this. You don't normally get a tough rivalry matchup right off the bat. You don't normally have this type of thing. Now, there's some great week 0, week 1 matchups this year. Texas, Ohio State, that's awesome. Auburn, Baylor. There's some really good football games in the first week and a half of football here, but you normally don't get a rival versus a rival, a conference versus a conference to start the season. It's just not normal. The rest of the non-conference seems manageable. North Dakota, Army's not the same as they were last year. They're not bringing back hardly anything. They got a brand new quarterback. You're going to hurt when you play that team. You definitely are going to have bangs and bruises, and you're going to remember that you played Army, but I think they'll be fine getting the win there. Arizona, although they're in the Big 12, is technically a non-conference game this season. They rescheduled that when they were still at the Pac-12, so that's the final game of the non-conference. And then you truly get into the non-conference schedule. UCF is the first up. I think that's, if you want to consider that the easy win, that's I'll say not easy, but the easiest win on the Big 12 schedule for them this season. Scott Frost, I think he'll find a way to get UCF back to being a respectable program. I think he just needs time, and he doesn't have that time yet. He lost a lot last year when Gus left and went to Florida State to take the offensive coordinator. He'll find a way to get this team there, and of course, being in the Big 12 for only a few years now, it's going to take some time, but he'll do that. I think the toughest game for me in that stretch initially is heading to Waco and Baylor. When I put out my initial predictions, the game in Baylor is tough. In Waco scares me to death. I can never assume what Dave Aranda is going to give. Dave Aranda, you can never know what he's going to say either. He has some crazy press conferences, but he can either be one of the most electric players, and Sawyer Robertson, I believe, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country as well. He's so dynamic, or Dave Aranda could be fired. He could be on the hot seat. So playing in Waco is a tough one. They're going to be more tested than any team in the Big 12 when that happens, though. Baylor, before they take on Kansas State, plays Auburn, plays SMU, and plays Arizona State before they get to Kansas State. So if we're going to know one thing about Baylor, even if they're 1-3, they're going to be tried and tested. So that's where I see on that one. But if I had to make a prediction, that's my first loss of the season for Kansas State is in Waco against the Baylor Bears. Then you got TCU, and TCU is the one that I can't put a finger on. I have no idea. I've said this on my show all off season long. I have no idea how to predict TCU this year. They're the team that we faced in 2022 in the Big 12 championship. We beat them, but they still found a way to go to the national championship. That's the same kind of feeling. They were 8-5, just like us last year. They have a great quarterback in Josh Hoover, who I don't think is talked about enough. But then, there's also this narrative that could Sonny Dykes technically be out of a job when the season's over, a team that was just in the national championship. So that one's in Manhattan, thankfully. That's why I take that one as a win. This is where it gets crazy, though. The last 5 games, I think, is insane. And if Kansas State can get through this last 5 games in this gauntlet, not only do I think they can win the Big 12 championship, but I think they can potentially make a deep run in the college football playoffs. This will be their tired and true. Sunflower Showdown is going to be wild this year, guys. Yeah. It's going to be insane. The last 2 years have been crazy.
Right.
Kansas has been so close to beating these Kansas State the last 2 years. They should have won last year. That game-winning field goal was insane.
Yes.
They should have won the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they're itching to make it happen. And as I mentioned, this is a dog-eat-dog conference. What a more perfect storm timing for them, for Avery Johnson to be on a 7-0 run, and then Kansas pops up on the schedule in Lawrence. Right. So that's a nerve-wracking game for me as well. The road trip at the end of the season, in Stillwater, in Utah, Oklahoma State and Utah were terrible last year. No one expected that to happen. But you can't tell me that's going to happen again. Mike Gundy's not going to let that happen. He's not going to let Oklahoma State be as bad as he was. Kyle Whittingham most definitely is not going to do that for the Utah team. There was quarterback issues on both sides of that. Sounds like Utah's figured out their quarterback situation. We'll see if Oklahoma State can do that as well. But either way, playing those back-to-back makes me very nervous. Texas Tech is one of those teams that you got to worry about because they spent so much money. And then you end the season in Colorado. Look, Colorado, I've got a little bit of bash from this, but this is the first year of Deion Sanders without his son at quarterback. That's a huge thing, right? But I think there's a potential for them to be 5-6 heading into the last game of the season, looking for that bowl win, looking for that 6th win to go to a bowl game. That sounds like a dangerous Deion Sanders to me in Manhattan. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Colorado finds their 6th win before the last game of the season. Because if they're 5-6 going into the final game of the year, that's spoiler. They're playing spoiler all day, and I don't want to see that. So this is such a tough schedule. The last 5 games, last 7 games, if you really want to play for it, is crazy. And of course, you're starting week 0 in Dublin. It's insane. But I do think they find a way to get it done. I think they're a really good football team this year. My prediction right now, I'm going with 10-2. I'm going with 10-2. You know what? I've been balancing back and forth. Let's change it right now, right on your show. I think they'll go 11-1. I think the only loss they get is against Baylor. The only loss they get to is against Baylor, and they find a way to win against Texas Tech. Thankfully, they play at home. Initially, I had them losing one of the games against Oklahoma State or Utah because that's such a tough road trip. But I believe in Avery Johnson. And I think when it's all said and done, they'll be 11-1. They'll be in the college football playoffs. And Avery Johnson will be a dark horse candidate for the Heisman Trophy.
See, we've had our previews, so we kind of already been at this point. I think when we did do your guys' schedule, I think predominantly we had you guys 10-2, 11-1, and I think we also kind of predicted Avery to be a real dark horse candidate for the Heisman Trophy, especially with him being able to run and throw the football and being so dynamic in both those aspects. Man, it's an exciting season, definitely on the horizon for K-State. Going into this season, though. Looking on the outskirts of the Big 12 conference, who do you feel is that threat to them to kind of either dethrone them or take that crown away from them for the Big 12?
How many teams do you want me to tell you? Because I think there's truly like seven teams that if they were on the other side of Arlington, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that doesn't surprise me. Let's start with Arizona State. They won the whole thing. I think they deserved their flowers. When I did my preseason poll ranking, I actually picked them to win the conference and had Kansas State ranked 2nd because I think they bring back so much roster returning performance. Jordan Tyson's going to be healthy at wide receiver this year. Sam Levitt's a great quarterback, probably going to be drafted in the 1st round next year. There's a lot of good stuff that Kenny Dillingham is doing over in Arizona State. But check this out. If you don't count Oklahoma and Texas, who are now in the SEC, of course, if you don't count them in this stat right here, the only team to go back-to-back, not to win it, but just go back-to-back to Arlington to make it to the Big 12 championship was Colorado in 2004 and 2005. It's been 20 years since a team, if you don't count Oklahoma or Texas, has made it back to the Big 12 championship back-to-back. So that's not good for Arizona State if you're playing the odds in that kind of conversation. And same with Iowa State in the sake of the Dublin game on Saturday. But Arizona State belongs there for sure. I think even if Kansas State finds a way to beat Iowa State tomorrow in Dublin, Iowa State still belongs there. Whoever loses that game isn't out of the conversation. I think 7-2 in conference gets you to Arlington. 8-1 most definitely, but I think 7-2, maybe with a potential tiebreaker, gets you to Arlington. I will say that if Iowa State loses on Saturday, they have an easier path to stay at 7-2 compared to Kansas State, as we just mentioned with the schedule earlier. So I think it's more important for Kansas State to win that game to stick around. But Iowa State is most definitely still in this conversation. As I mentioned Baylor earlier, I think they get a loss. They deserve to be in this talk. Texas Tech, I'm not as high on Texas Tech as a lot of the national media is. I do think they belong in the conversation for everything they've done this offseason, the resources, everything is so good. And I think it'd be great for the Big 12 when we talk about brand and everything. It'd be smart for them to be in that conversation. Coach McGuire hasn't got past that 9-win mark yet. He hasn't done that since he's met Texas Tech. And until he does that, I have to put them, I kind of got to fade them. I got to put them to the side. And I'll give you one dark horse here. And this one might not be on your radar. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But we talk about all these great quarterbacks in the Big 12 because there's a lot of them in this conference. And you could make the argument that there's no better conference in the quarterback guys than the Big 12 when you're talking Levitt and Robinson and Hoover and Avery Johnson and Noah Fafita, right? Like Arizona's not going to be good, but Noah Fafita is a good quarterback. Devin Dampier, things like that. BYU doesn't have a quarterback. They're starting a true freshman, Bear Backmeyer. I think that's how you say his last name. but the defense is so elite from BYU.
Yeah.
They're returning so much. Offensive production, their running game, their wide receivers are very good. If they can get past the fact, or if this freshman quarterback can step up and be serviceable, Jake Retlaf wasn't like an elite quarterback. He was serviceable. So if he can just remain serviceable, BYU could be a potential dark horse conversation as well. So that's my dark horse. But if I had to give you the rest, Kansas State, Iowa State, Arizona, Texas Tech, the ones that you normally would hear, they're leading the charge. I'm not super high on Utah. Some people give the vibes on Utah. I'm not there yet. I think they are better than last year. They'll make a bowl game, but they're not competing for Arlington.
No, I definitely agree with you on the Utah thing, because people were trying to tell me like, oh, they think Utah is going to be winning the Big 12. I'm like, I don't know, because it's like them losing
last year?
I mean, especially because I'm like, especially with no Cam Rising, so you're going into a new quarterback. I mean, I get it, he has some, but he wasn't. I'm not very high on Utah either, so I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you. I mean, there's a couple other teams that could shock you. Like, again, as I mentioned, I don't know what TCU is going to be. They could pop out of nowhere. West Virginia could be a fun team to pay attention to with Rich Rod. I mean, he could find his way to get to bowl eligibility 8-4, 7-5. That'd be huge for the brand of West Virginia. And then Houston. I think Houston could be one of those wild card teams, not to be in Arlington, but to find themselves at 8-4. And they're bringing in a bunch of 5 stars for next season as well. If they can build some momentum, watch out for them in 2026.
Yeah. Nah, I definitely agree. We talked about a little bit about the season. Now I want to talk to you about your fandom since you joined on Locked On K-State. What has been your favorite games to cover? What is your favorite game to watch? Just tell us about your favorite moments.
Well, in the Kansas State form of things, I've only been doing this for 7 months. This is technically going to be my first football season. I started this channel at probably the worst time you possibly could start a channel, but that's just how the hiring process worked when it happened. My third video on the channel, I believe, was covering the bowl game. So that was the only football game that I covered. So that would have to be the game that I talked about, right? Of course, I've been covering Kansas State and following them for quite some time, and I know all about the school. But I've mainly covered the basketball season this year, a very disappointing year from Jerome Tang not making the NCAA tournament for the second season in a row. But this football season is going to be super exciting. It's going to be really fun to pay attention to. And I do think, if you would have asked me this question on Monday instead of right now, the most exciting game I'm going to cover is Farmageddon in Dublin, because this game is going to be electric. It's going to be so good, man. It's going to be so good. This is going to be one of those games that when you look back at it, you're going to start hearing people that have never even thought about thinking about watching Kansas State or Iowa State or talk about Avery Johnson or Rocco Beck. They're going to start becoming household names. Dylan Edwards, household name. Oh, I remember that guy. He was a freshman at Colorado the year that everybody paid attention to Deion Sanders. He's at Kansas State now. Oh, man, let's start paying attention to that school. That's what's going to happen on Saturday.
Yeah, I love the fact that these kids get to go halfway across the world and showcase their talents to a crowd that normally, wasn't watching. I mean, obviously over on those sides of the world, that football or football is a lot more popular. Soccer is a lot more popular. We'll see
if they run out of beer. They've run out of beer every time so far. We'll see if it happens.
They're definitely getting a banger of a game, man. To have 2 ranked teams to go over there, as a guy who I grew up, living in Kansas City, watching Big 12 football, to get to see one of the best conferences in the nation, to duke it out, and the first game of the year is just incredible sight to see. I'm happy for K-State, happy for Chris Kleiman, also happy for Matt Campbell and his program as well too. And hopefully it is a great game. Leading me to, obviously you watch a lot of college football. What other games outside of this game are you excited to see this year?
Oh, this year? Oh man, so many games this year. Just starting off with next week's games in week 1, I think Baylor Auburn has the opinion to be a barn burner. Baylor Auburn has a way to be a barn burner, and I think Auburn is one of those teams that people are very high on this year in the SEC, and they've been high on them for a couple of years now with Hugh Freeze. We'll see if Jackson Arnold can turn into the quarterback that he really couldn't be in Oklahoma. Their wide receivers are really fun. But there's this thing about sleeping on Baylor. I don't think you should do that. I don't think and this is in Waco. It's not in Auburn. It's in Waco. So that could be a good big win for the Big 12. And then the day after, Texas, Ohio State. How could you not be excited about that? It should be 1 versus 2. The AP poll messed up. They shouldn't have made it 1 versus 3. That's bad marketing for college football. They should have just made it happen. They should have cheated the system and just made that work. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've been watching the SEC Netflix stuff on Netflix, the SEC stories, and it's made me a Shane Beamer fan. So anything South Carolina is interesting, right? Because Shane Beamer, he sounds like a coach I'd want to play for after watching some of those episodes. And I'm excited to see what Penn State can do. I think they have probably the most talented roster that Penn State's had in quite some time. But can James Franklin, a future or a former Kansas State coordinator, might I add, can he do what a lot of people don't think he can do at Penn State and run the whole table or at least make a deep run or even at least get a Big Ten championship under his belt? That would be yet to be determined. I'm interested to see Penn State. I'm interested to see some of these East Coast quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik, can he have all this roster retention with Clemson? There's a lot of really fun football this year that's going to be good. And even the G5, like the last year of this new Mountain West before it becomes the Pac-12, like what will Boise State be? What will San Diego State, UNLV with Dan Mullen? Like those are going to be fun. And I think, Owen McNown with UTSA, I think that he's going to be a fun team to watch. So there's a ton of football. And thankfully I have to my left right here 3 computer monitors that I get to put quad boxes on every single one of them because I am hooked on Saturday. I need to install what I need to do before the games start tomorrow is go out to my shed and bring in my new seatbelt so I can install it. So I'm not getting up out of my seat because I'm not moving when noon strikes tomorrow. I'm not getting up from that seat until the games are over. I am so pumped for the season to start. I'm so glad it's finally here. It's felt like a lifetime.
It has. It definitely has. We're excited as well too. One final question before we get you out of here. Obviously, moving into this new CFP college football playoff, going from 4 teams now to 12 teams. What were your thoughts previously last year on how things went for that situation?
It wasn't perfect, but it was. It was decent. It wasn't perfect. But when you remember the last year of the other playoffs, leaving out Florida State, that wasn't perfect either, right? There was obviously some concerns and woes there. There's always going to be a team, whether you have 12 teams, 16 teams, 64, even if you have 130 teams, well, there's 136 teams in the FBS. There's always going to be one team that feels like they miss out. Even if they had a 136 playoff team, one of the FCS schools would feel like they need to get into this mix. There would be a team that feels like they deserve to belong. So you're never going to make everybody happy when it comes to this. I don't want to see it expand quite more. Like I think 16 is a good magic number, and I think it sits there. I don't want it to go deep. You don't need to have 20 teams or 64 or 68 teams just because another sport does it. Like you just don't need to make that happen. So 16 when they eventually upgrade it, because it's inevitable, it's going to happen in the future. You're going to get to 16. I think that'll be a sweet spot. And when they figure out that get rid of the buys, I think that would be fun as well. Find a way to make the conference championship games still mean something. Make sure they either have an automatic bid or a guaranteed home game, but they don't need a bye. Make 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, whatever the case may be, and then just play. And that's where I think they need to get to when it's all said and done. But overall, it's not perfect, and it never will be.
Yeah. I definitely got the thing. My phone's blowing up right now. Something just happened on social media. So my biggest question is for you, Christian, as a guy who's been submerged with Kansas State, when you've got fans who don't know what to root for, what is your pitch for them to make them a reason for being a Kansas State fan?
I mean, the fan base is electric. So if you wanted to join a really good community of fans, you found it. They're very dedicated. They are outstanding people to just be a part of and have conversations with. Like, they have welcomed me in with open arms, and it's been super exciting to be a part. But if you're looking for performance, they have it too. I mean, they're in a football program. They're competitive year in and year out, especially under Chris Kleiman. They are always in the race somehow, some way. They're always in the game somehow, some way. They hardly get blown out. I think there was only one bad game last year. That was the BYU game, and things happen in college football. But other than that, they're always really in the game. And just from a Kansas State standpoint as well, the basketball program's turning around. They're still finding a way to get in big portal pieces like PJ Haggerty, bringing in some good pieces. The baseball program's good. There's a lot of exciting things that's going on with Kansas State, and I do think it's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely, guys against Kansas.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you're a Mizzou fan. How do you feel about playing? How do you feel about them playing for the first time? What, a decade?
Man, I love it. I love it because that's the one thing about it is like the one thing about me and DG we both agree on is like though we're in the SEC, we're so used to being in the Big 12 that it's like that best ex that you ever had. Like, yeah, you moved on from them, but you're still rooting for them and you're still wanting the best for them. I love it because it's just like we know about the basketball rivalry. We hate Kansas guts. Kansas hates our guts. And the fact that we're bringing it back to the football aspect, and especially that it's starting off at Mizzou, it's a great expectation for us. I think that was the first game we sold out. So it's going to be
Kansas and Kansas State is a rivalry for sports. But KU and Mizzou fans legit hate each other, like on a personal level. So I'm excited to see that rivalry be reborn for sure.
Oh,
yeah, I think everybody in this region, if you don't live in either Lawrence or you're a KU fan, you pretty much hate KU at this point. Yeah. So, I'm a big KU hater myself. So
I don't disagree.
Anybody who's playing against them, I'm rooting for it. So you got my vote.
Look,
well, good. Hopefully 17 in a row then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I need to know because that's the thing about it is like for me, I've known Felix. I think that I went to high school with him. So I was definitely tuned in for you guys. And the fact that you guys is at what, 14? What's the consecutive streak that you beat?
16 in a row.
So the fact that if I can sit over and say you guys lost to these guys 17 straight times, it's a bliss. It's blissful.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, Christian, man, tell the people where they can find you and tell us a little bit about the show and when you're live and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I drop episodes every single day, sometimes even twice a day, especially with the football season here. And it's Locked On Kansas State. You can find it on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, anywhere that case may be. And yeah, we cover the Wildcats every single day. That's exactly what we do. We are locked on, we are dedicated, and we bring it to you like no one else. There is no other coverage that brings it as much as we do, and we cover football, men's basketball, women's basketball for the most part. Some of the other sports pop into the conversation. Of course, Big 12 conversations, realignment, anything that involves or could impact what means for Kansas State, we're talking about it, and we're discussing it every single day, and it's quite an adventure. I have some great everydayers that we talk every single day, and I drop the episodes every morning at 7 a.m. on YouTube, and you can find it earlier if you're on the audio. So usually on the audio side, if it strikes midnight, it's up, but on the YouTube side, 7 a.m. every morning.
Look, I'm definitely tuned in. I'm going to be locked on. I love, for what I've seen, and I love the content. I love everything about Locked On because you guys have done a great job, each and every one of you guys. So it's like for me, when I was told, like, hey, we got Christian from K-State, I was like, yo, this is going to be a really good episode.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, we definitely appreciate you pulling up and talking and chopping up with us. Hopefully we get a chance to have you back on here, maybe even when the season is in full swing and get a little update from you at that point in time. But yeah, man, we appreciate having you. Hopefully it's a big dub for K-State going over there to Ireland, and hopefully you got a lot of excitement to talk about from that game. So Appreciate you having you tonight, man. As always, guys, man, we'll be back after week 0 is done to kind of chop up some of the games. But also, guys, as well, Underdog Fantasy promo code KingdomCast. Go to Underdog, man. The college football season is upon us. And, Saturday is obviously going to be one of those days where you're going to be sitting at home and looking to put in, some plays of that nature. So go to Underdog, man. It's the best place to play daily fantasy sports. They obviously got college football over there. Use the promo code to get $1,000 match on your first deposit and also your free play as well. Appreciate you guys having you guys here tonight, man. Enjoy week 0, guys, and we'll see you next time. Peace.